Hello and welcome back to another exciting podcast episode of American Pylon. Your host here, Will Mehall, joined by the usual counterparts, James Thomas Fanning IV, Tyler Combs, and producer Dave, behind all the tech making this possible, putting all of this together. Again, we're in our new studio over here at producer Dave's place. We've actually got a new setup, so we're in a different part of the house. But it's worked out nicely, so
it's a multifaceted studio.
Exactly,
very nice,
and we're excited to be back. Obviously, the college football season sort of kicked off this past weekend in miserable fashion, as we'll talk about here in a minute. And then we're going to, of course, get into UGA coming up against Vanderbilt this weekend. Some predictions for the season, what we can expect to see from some key players. And then we'll talk about the rest of the landscape, I think, for college football. But before we jump into this, I want to give a shout out to our new headline sponsor, Ed Freeman, State Farm. We rely on Ed Freeman for all of our insurance needs. He's the best the best agent in the state. I've said it before on here. Yeah. So I don't need to harp too much on that. But if you do have a boat, a car, a life, or a house, be sure to look up Ed Freeman State Farm for all of your insurance needs. Awesome. So, yeah, as I mentioned, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Florida-Miami matchup. I didn't really know what to expect too much. I don't know that much about Miami going in. I was hoping it was going to be better than it was. We talked about it a little bit before the show. A lot of turnovers, a lot of penalties. What did you guys take away from that game? More so looking at Florida and what you saw from them on the field.
Well, it certainly resembled a football game. What we saw.
They were
of all the games I've ever seen, that was one of them. I was actually at a concert Saturday night, so I had kind of sporadic getting to watch it and then watching the highlights and stuff. But I think my biggest takeaway, which maybe this is looking at it through Georgia-colored glasses, is I don't think Florida's defensive line is nearly as good as that 10-sack stat line is going to say, because they just absolutely abused that one. The Miami starting a true freshman left tackle who, I mean, he signed up to play tackle in the ACC in his first game of his college career. He's going up against SEC defensive linemen, which isn't really fair. So thoughts and prayers to him. Hopefully he can come back from that game mentally. But that would be my biggest takeaway. I think Florida fans are really going to lean into the fact that their defensive line is quote-unquote elite because they had 10 sacks, but that was like playing against essentially a high schooler.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that was really the biggest takeaway was how awful Miami's offensive line looked. I don't think anyone – I've never watched a game where –
Who was the coach that recruited all those offensive linemen?
I don't know. Some
former Georgia
guy, yeah.
Great Teeing guy. It up for Brent here.
Guy, yeah.
Good guy, not a good offensive line recruiter.
Dr. Brent Johnson isn't here this week to defend. He's a big fanboy of Mark Richt. But, yeah, I mean, that game was week 0, so I was happy to have football back. It was nice. And it was Florida, not only a conference opponent, but a division opponent that we hate and we see every year. So it was nice to see some film on them playing a Power 5 in Miami at 1 week 0 before anyone else. They kind of stuck their necks out there and played, had one less week of practice, I guess, from everybody else. So I think it's easy for us to harp on that game, and I think the game was absolute crap. It was kind of fun to mock both teams because neither team seemed to really want it. But I think, hats off to both programs. Really, I know they moved that game up in the season to play early before everyone else, which is good for you to go get eyes on your program. That's a big recruiting win. But obviously, it shows you. You also put yourself out there because everyone can see your shortcomings, and clearly they weren't ready. And I think starting with Miami, not only is their offensive line, which I don't think you can really overcome that. I don't think you can just grow with an offensive line that quickly. I think it takes a while to mesh to get the best 5 guys out there. It's kind of, if you don't have the Joes in the field early on, your team will get better and it'll mesh as it comes along. I don't see them really clicking. That's always going to be a weakness for them all year, I think. And then just staying with Miami on the offensive side of the ball, they also started a true freshman quarterback. In the news, we talked about a little bit on our last episode. Tate Martell did lose out to the quarterback who did start. I don't know. I can't recall his name, but he was a freshman. Mm-hmm. And the poor kid, freshman quarterback at Miami playing against a decent defense, albeit in Florida. But I thought his offensive coordinator didn't do any favors for him. There were so many penalties, so many delay of games, late play calls, substitution errors. It was just like, and he was just yelling at the kid, berating him. And I was like, you have to give your true freshman quarterback first start in a neutral site versus his rival, a bitter rival, on the road, or at least at a not in a friendly environment in the confines of Miami Stadium. You got to help him out. You have to burn those timeouts to help keep his confidence there. Because then, not only was a coach, in my observation, not really helping him in those regards. Again, that offensive line was just absolutely horrible. And I don't know, it was hard to watch because it wasn't even necessarily in the sack number, which is 10 is great and high and good. I don't think Florida's that good as to what Jimmy said. I think they're bad, but not that great. I think even the sack number wasn't even indicative of how bad that offensive line was because every single play thing would just collapse. And he would get the ball off, running for his life, or he fumbled half the freaking snaps like in the fourth quarter. It was atrocious. But
he went 19 of 29, 214 yards with a touchdown, no turnovers lost, despite being sacked 10 times. So he almost
and fumbling 4, I think.
Yeah, he fumbled.
Or the Miami team fumbled 4 times.
So
he fumbled a couple.
It was almost like as far as a freshman's concerned, not a terrible showing, almost in spite of his offensive line.
No, it was later in the game. That fourth quarter, it was really when the depth of, I guess you can say, the SEC or Florida really showed up versus that Miami team and that young quarterback. And you could just tell, with a younger quarterback like that early in the season, truly that early before everyone else was playing, you're handcuffed what you can do with your playbook. And you could tell they had almost run out of stuff. They ran out of screens.
They only had 8 plays.
They opened up the game, and they were gashing Florida on the edges with sweeps and screens and real quick, passes to get him confident. You can tell it's a young quarterback to get that ball out of your hands, get some yards after catch for your receivers. But it fell apart because Florida adjusted, because as they would, you'd expect Todd Grantham to do so. And then Todd Grantham, as aggressive as he is, just came after the kid all night and just couldn't do it. But as much as we can say that about Miami, Florida was they didn't want to win it either. Felipe Franks is absolute dog crap. I'm sorry.
2019 Felipe Franks looks a lot like 2018 Felipe Franks.
And the thing that's frustrating is I feel like he has the physical tools. He's going to come out and just play lights out and beat someone. So, hopefully it's like Kentucky or somebody we don't care. I hope he doesn't have, pick our game to randomly flip the switch.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be enough to outpace the talent gap that we have, which I guess we'll get into farther in the season when we actually preview Florida. But I agree. He's not good, but he will be good for 1 or 2 games this season.
Yeah, I can't quite put my finger on. Is Felipe Franks, is he just bad enough to where he can't get over the hump, or is he just good enough to keep his job? Because he became public enemy.
He's an enigma.
Well, it's weird because he's playing at a major SEC school, and I feel like he's underperformed, if not put the team in deficit multiple times throughout his tenure today.
But he does enough,
which is incredible to me that you're still running the show.
Did you see the thing where he got in a camera's face and was like, "This is what I do. I'm in my zone," or he was talking or whatever. And he went out and immediatally threw an interception.
Yeah, well, that was the best part, and social media went wild with that. But to me, he made himself public enemy number 1 because he was doing these whole theatrics. He would score or lead his team down to not a turnover, and then hop over the fence when he was on the sideline and go high five the fans and stuff, hanging at the low bleachers.
Move, bro.
Then he would hop back over, and Dan Mullen talked to him. Then he did it again. Then he came back over. Then he talked to the camera, and then he goes right back out there and throws a horrible pick. He got hit after the throw, but before the throw, he was uninterrupted. Little 8-yard duck. Horrible play call for Florida, A. B, horrible execution by Felipe Franks. But also, when the college football world has its entire eyes on your game because you're playing in week 0, and you're going to act like that and make it all about you, you're going to make yourself public enemy number 1. With how bad you play, you didn't really back it up. You do a well enough job, good enough job to keep your job.
We're basically 5 years old
at
here.
the University of Florida, but you can't get out of your own way. And Felipe, no one's talking about you but us currently and yourself. You're the only one. Felipe is the only one talking about Felipe.
Which that being said, we should probably move on. We don't want to give too much credence to this guy.
That's fair.
The fact that we have such a big following, and Felipe Franks really needs to step up his game before we give him any more of the limelight. I think we can walk away from that conversation saying that it was a disappointing kickoff to the season. However, we're excited moving into the showdown against Vanderbilt. But just before we jump into that, we didn't get a chance to talk about the defensive depth chart last time. I know we were really focusing on the offensive side, so I want to start off and talk about the defensive line and kind of what we can expect this season and some of the important aspects that you guys want to get out there.
Yeah. Sure. So this is more Tyler's wheelhouse than mine, but what we were talking about beforehand is the biggest thing about the defense that makes it different than the offense is we rotate so many guys. The offense, you do your best to have your best 11 out there. You rotate the running backs. Mostly to give Swift a little bit of a rest. You rotate the wide receivers situationally, but a lot of the positions the starters are playing the majority of the snaps, whereas in defense, sometimes the starters may not even play the most snaps. It's so situational. We rotate so many guys to keep guys fresh, so there's a few like position battles at each level of the defense we thought we could go over. So starting with the D-line.
Yeah, so the D-line's pretty much set. The two that are kind of set in stone right now are defensive end and defensive tackle. We run a 3-4, 3 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, and then you have your secondary, however that looks, depending on the package like Jimmy was talking about. But starting the defensive line, you have Tyler Clark at defensive tackle. You guys remember him, 52. And then you have Malik Herring, number 10, is a defensive end. So those will be our two guys that we kind of depend on to hopefully manufacture some pass rush or at least stop up some run gaps. And then the really only position battle at this level of the defensive line is nose guard. I think a lot of us were really pegging Jordan Davis to start there because he had such a good year last year in 2018 as a sophomore.
He was a freshman.
He came in, really created a spark plug, and just a big body. He's number 99. But for everything from camp, it sounds like Michael Barnett is going to at least be the starter. Again, like Jimmy said, they'll rotate these guys 10, 20 times throughout the game. I mean, they'll get their fair share of snaps, but they're saying Michael Barnett, he's number 94, that he'll start at nose guard at least, just coming right out of practice. But that's the only really piece that's surprising, I guess, is that centerpiece on the defensive line.
Yeah. I think you could argue that's a good thing, just that that Davis, as a true sophomore, as good as he is doesn't just have a stranglehold on that position. Like, you want competition at every position. That's almost an impossible position to not need a break throughout the game. So you really need two guys that can play it well. And Barnett, if I'm not mistaken, he's a redshirt senior, right?
Yeah, he's older.
Yeah.
Which it's an unforgiving position too, because you're not a sack master. You know, you're in the middle of you're the middle of 3 men going against a 5 offensive lineman front. You're not gonna unless you have a real quick step. You're not gonna get a sack. You're not running it right at your nose guard or nose tackle. So he's there just to eat up blocks. You know, like John Atkins did so well for us. So he's just there just to swallow holes, have two guys, take them on, and then free up a lane for a linebacker to come blitz in and do their job, which we're hoping.
So basically we're just hoping that Davis didn't lose the position as much as Barnett won it.
Right.
And you're hoping those guys are similar talent level and can spell each other throughout the game.
Yeah.
And
the red and black lens is going to be there's some depth there. We've just built depth. No one's lost a position.
Yeah, everyone is as good or better than last year.
Yeah, right. So natural progression. So then so like we were just saying, that defensive line really helps either get after the quarterback or open up those holes and take on blocks for the next level, the linebackers. The 2 inside linebackers are pretty set. They're the 2 returning guys from last year. We went through some lumps with them, but Monty Rice and Tay Crowder. Tay Crowder is, if you guys remember, he is a running back turned defender into a linebacker. But those both guys got the lion's share of the carries last year. We are pretty stout as far as rotation at inside linebacker behind those 2. I mean, we have
a lot of talent, more talent than them on paper, but they both are a little older.
They're older. They know the scheme, and for everything I've read, and I'm just quoting stuff. This isn't me. They say knowing where to be is at this point in practice. It's game week. Is knowing where to be supersedes anything. Any supersedes talent. I think younger guys could definitely come up under and beat who we're going to have at inside linebacker in Tay Crowder and Monty Rice. Like, we have the likes of Quay Walker, if you guys remember, and Channing Tindall, both big-time guys. I think were both 5-star. One of them was 5-star. Maybe both highlighted 4 stars.
I think Tindall was a 5-star on some, but not on the composite, but like a top 50 player still. Yeah,
but both of those guys, if you see them on the field, they're 41 and 25. They look the part. They look mean. They're big. They're fast. They're athletic. I think they're a little bit behind the playbook from what it sounds like.
Yeah, and what I've heard, Tindall is more of a true middle linebacker, and then Quay is more versatile. In terms of where they would stick them in. So Quay would be more likely to be in like a stunt and loop around outside and rush the passer, whereas Tindall is a true middle linebacker.
Okay. So then, so that's good stuff as far as body, body, physique, and type. And then you have Nakobe Dean also, who is sounds like the herald recruit, not surprisingly, I should say, but he's just 5-star linebacker from Mississippi, Horn Lake. He's just really exploded onto the scene. They're saying he's running with the number 2s. I think he'll be wearing number 17. So look out for him, Nakobe Dean. He's 5-star true freshman. The kid's 17 or 18 years old.
Is he healthy? Because I thought he was injured at some point.
He sat out a couple practices, but he was back as of 2 days ago. But was he wearing a non-contact jersey?
I can't remember. I think they said he went through drills I think he went through drills fine. I think they said he was maybe been favoring a leg. I think it was something in the hamstring area.
Okay.
So that might hold him out. I know he's going to make the travel roster, if that tells you anything. And the kid's been on campus for 3 months, 4 months, and he's traveling with a team.
Yeah.
With the SEC travel squad, when you go to an away SEC game, I think you can only take 70.
You can take 70 of your 85 scholarship players, and even then, it tends to be a few of those 70s will be like a second-string kicker who's a walk-on or something.
Yeah.
So you usually leave behind like 17, 18 scholarship players.
Yeah.
So as a freshman class of 25-ish people, I mean,
that's
to
huge.
make the travel rosters, you're in like the top 6 or 7 of the freshmen.
That, I mean, we just listed 7. I mean, including him, that's 5 guys that are playing, sharing 2 positions. So that's huge for a freshman, I think, to be included in that rotation. Those are the inside linebackers. Outside linebackers, I think, are a little more unsettled. But from what we've read and gathered, it looks like Azeez Ojulari. You guys remember him? He played for Marietta. His little brother plays for Marietta as well, committed to Tennessee recently. I think he'll be wearing number 13 on the edge. He was wearing 38 last year. I'm just saying this stuff so you can quickly look for it.
Yeah.
I like that's how I remember who's on the field and who's coming off. But Azeez Ojulari and I think Walter Grant, who was our lanky Leonard Floyd kind of looking linebacker.
Walter Grant's like quietly holding on to his starting spot. Amongst all this star power about him, I feel like he gets forgotten. But I don't know if Kirby likes those kind of bring your lunch pail type guys, or he just knows the playbook better.
Yeah.
Or what. But
I mean, that's a good point. I guess I haven't thought about that as well, because I always hear or read Walter Grant, and I'm like, Walter Grant? What? We've signed so many other guys that I feel like fit the bill, but because he seems so situational. He and Adam Anderson are both that lengthy, long, smaller, if you can say smaller, outside linebacker. They really aren't going to stand up in the run, but they can cover so well.
Or a coverage guy off ball.
So... But that's who projects to at least get the nod on that first snap versus Vanderbilt. And then behind those guys, you obviously have the highly recruited 5-star Nolan Smith. We're very excited to see.
Number 1 in the country last year.
I think he's wearing number 4. So look for him like on a third down or long. If we get long down and distance situations, if we get a good tackle for a loss or a sack or something to that effect, look for him to come in an obvious passing situation just because he's with younger kids that are that athletic, they just have to do one thing: go get the ball, go get the quarterback. So it's a lot easier to assign a kid that talented to not think about any football and just to go react.
Yeah.
So look for that. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other guys.
Jermaine Johnson.
Oh, yes.
The last one. So we have some serious depth. The number 2 is coming off the outside linebacker. Jermaine Johnson was the number 1 JUCO player in the country last year as an edge rusher. Apparently has serious potential to be a 3-and-out guy, but like we said, Walter Grant is holding on to that spot. And at this point, I mean, I trust the coaches. They're not going to play favorites or put anybody on the field that doesn't deserve it. So to me, that says when, if we get a good tackle for a loss and it's 2nd and 12 in the third quarter or whatever, and the other team's a little bit tired, if we're putting in Nolan Smith and Jermaine Johnson, as our second string edge rushers, that's some, guys that would be starting on 90% of teams. And that's a problem that every single team in the country would die for. So I think it's going to be
we have an incredible
thing.
problem.
I had sort of penciled in Jermaine Johnson specifically because he is, even though he's a first-year guy, he is an upperclassman at this point, just in terms of being in a college football program, having a little more time to mature.
Yep.
So Nolan Smith, I always drink the Kool-Aid a little bit and get too excited, but I've tried to hold myself back with him and say, he is a freshman. This is the SEC. Only thing with him is he did go to IMG, which is essentially a college program for high schoolers.
Yeah.
So I think those guys do come in a little more ready to play. So I think he'll be a good player this year. But
I hope we get to see him. Obviously.
That rotating 4 of guys that can sort of do it all, and then you've got Adam Anderson, you mentioned, who is just not super big, probably not going to be in on first down where they might run towards him, but a really, really good pass rusher, really good situational guy out of Rome. So we've got just sort of an embarrassment of riches.
We do, because of every body type for defending against the run, the pass. It's nice. We're set up pretty well there. And I guess moving on to the second or the last layer of the defense, the DBs, defensive backs. Yeah, the 2 safeties, those are pretty much locked in. You guys know Richard LeCount, number 2. He was the cousin of D'Angelo Gibbs, who we recruited.
That's J.R. Reed.
I'm sorry, I have this complete. I'm sorry. Yeah, Richard LeCount, number 2. Awesome guy. Then you have number 20, J.R. Reed, who was a cousin of D'Angelo Gibbs. Transferred in from Tulsa a couple years back and has just been an absolute gem back there. I think he's played the most snaps of any Georgia player right now.
Yeah,
returning on our entire team, offense or defense. So just 2 reliable guys back there that we, I guess Richard LeCount, if anything to say about those 2. LeCount had some issues with tackling, I feel like, last year. He was a leading tackler, which is hard to believe. Or not hard to believe, but it's hard to believe he had tackling issues being a leading tackler.
As a leading tackler.
But so that stuff we can look to shore up. But with more athletic guys that we just covered in the linebacker, that kind of helps the angles you can take and everything else. So saying all that, those 2 guys are just locked, studded. I mean, those are just who you probably see almost every snap.
Yeah.
And then real quickly behind them, I think you'll see guys like Otis Reese, who was a 5-star, maybe 4-star.
Reese apparently was pretty well on Richard LeCount's heels and late in last year and in spring practice, but I think LeCount has kind of separated himself. But again, some really quality depth because it's really hard to get through a whole year without anybody getting hurt at all. And then Lewis Seen.
Yeah, I've heard Seen. And I want to talk about Lewis Seen for real quick because it was only G-Day, and you can't take too much from it, but Lewis Seen and G-Day looked incredible. He was literally all over the yard. He covered so much ground, and he would get beat and just make it up when the ball wasn't there. He was able to catch up to the ball in the air. It was just – the kid looked great. Now, how does that translate on Saturdays when you're playing other offenses and other, athletes you haven't seen before, you're not familiar with their movement? We'll see. But he looked impressive.
It's a good thing to have because obviously you don't wish injury on anybody. But if injury were to happen, even if it's just like somebody loses their helmet and you got to throw a freshman out there for a play, it's kind of like, well, if you don't know the playbook and you're going to make a mistake, make it fast and hit somebody. Yeah. So I think that's the kind of the players that we've got on the bench right now are guys that if you put them in there, they might not know what they're doing, but they're going to do it 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And that's all you can really ask for at that point. So I think that could be a good problem. Then cornerback is a similar way. We've got, 3 guys that are really jockeying to start, and whoever the odd man out is going to be arguably one of the better backups in all of college football. So, but you don't take that.
Oh yeah, guys? I mean, no, you answered that perfectly. So there's I think Eric Stokes. I think people knew Eric Stokes was going to start because he kind of took the job from Tyson Campbell last year, our Herald 5-star defensive back signee from last year out of South Florida. So he took Tyson Campbell's spot because people are kind of picking on Tyson. Super athletic, didn't quite get the whole coverage and man down. You can saw that. I think it came to light versus LSU. They were able to pick the kid apart.
He was
there
always
pretty well.
right in the right spot, but I think I never played cornerback, but so I've read there's a whole art to being in the right spot and getting your head around and actually knocking the ball down. There's kind of a big gap in skill set from being able to do one to being able to do both, and that's the part that he's been struggling with. So the good thing is physically he's always been in the place to make the play. He just hasn't quite gotten that. He's gotten 99% of the way there and just can't quite get that 100, but the light can come on at any time.
Right.
I mean, the fact that we're not going to throw him out there to just sink or swim, that we have guys who we trust while we bring him along is good.
And that kid has 13 games under his belt. I mean, even though he didn't start, he maybe started, I guess, what was that, 6 or 7?
Yeah.
And then he still played in every game. So, I mean, the kid's got a lot of experience under his belt for just being so young, and this is his second year. And then, it's Eric Stokes starting, and then surprisingly, I think we thought it would be Tyson Campbell kind of win that back on the opposite side now that DeAndre Baker has now left to the NFL to go make his money. It's looking like DJ Daniel, which most of you may not be on your radar, but he is also a JUCO transfer. I forget from where. Is he from the Mississippi State?
No, he's from like Georgia Military College.
Right, GMC.
Milledgeville, I think. Yeah.
Which I think, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he committed to? Didn't he
committed to South Carolina and then flipped? I think it was one of the things where I think he always kind of wanted to come to Georgia, but he didn't have a committable offer, and I don't know if if we reevaluated him and decided we did want him, or if we missed on somebody, or what. But he was. It sounds funny to say because he's going to end up starting over a 5-star, which is just how it goes sometimes. But I think he was one of those guys that was sort of a fringe offer for this team. From what I've read, I don't know this guy.
But here they're saying he might start. So, I mean, again, these are all maybes, mights. Nothing's really for sure. And, again, it all depends on who trots out there on offense first. It depends on what Vanderbilt throws at us, who gets their first start. But that's just a quick rundown, I guess, of who you should kind of be familiar with and who you should see out there on Saturday afternoons for the majority of snaps, or at least starting snaps, for our defense.
I think Rodrigo Blankenship's got that kicker spot nailed down, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that reminds me of star position, which is kind of like our hybrid linebacker / defensive back real quick. Mark Webb, thank you, Will, is going to start there. He's kind of, I think he was a linebacker. He was trying to fill his shoes in at linebacker last year and wasn't quite quick enough, big enough, I'm not sure. So they stuck him over there because he was super physical. And I thought he might lose that to Devon Wilson. For some of you guys don't remember, he tore his ACL last year pretty highly. I think we stole him from Bama.
Spring practice.
Yeah, we stole him from Bama in recruiting. Tore his ACL in practice last year. Sat out all year. Only played in the Sugar Bowl. Looked great. And the kid,
I think he led the team in tackles in that game.
Really?
That's okay. I read that. I think he had like 12 tackles or something like that. He was one of the only guys that looked like he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
If you think about, most of the team was like, we had some of our best players sitting out, whether it was injuries or guys going to the NFL and protecting their draft stock, and then some other guys that maybe we had college football playoff hopes and fell short. So even though it's a New Year's Six bowl, Still hard to get hyped up for it. But I think Azeez Ojulari played in that game.
Yeah.
Devon Wilson played in that game. So they were like, hey, these are my first college snaps. I'm going wide open.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I remember that
Yeah.
their body language is much more like, this is my chance. Like, it was very physical, very fast, which is to their testament to their talent also. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's to look for, I guess, in that star position when we kind of go into our they call it the nickel package, when you have one more additional defensive back on the field to kind of handle the spread offenses like we'll see against Missouri and definitely not Florida. I don't know who else because Felipe can't throw the bean around the yard. And then I guess when we go into the money position, just to get real deep, this is about all you'll see on defense the majority of the part. It's just an additional defensive back, which I think Devon Wilson will stand in there.
Come out.
So that covers all the spots that you might see on defense, I think.
Yeah, I think you'll hear a lot more names called over the course of the season than we just said.
Yeah.
Because like we said, we rotate so many guys. I think we usually play like 30, 31 guys in a game on defense, but I think that'll be the majority, and you can have a conversation in a bar, and people think you know what you're talking about.
And for the ladies that are listening, if you are single and you can drop some of this knowledge, a guy will love it. Trust me. I'm working on the fiance right now, and she knows a good bit about the offensive line or whatever or offense, and she can wrap that off.
She does know the names.
She knows the names. She says the numbers, and some guys are impressed when they get there. Like, wow, you kind of you are taking interest. So. I'm not the love doctor, but it does go a long way to win my heart and other guys that love football.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're not just dropping football knowledge. We're also giving you romance tips.
There you go.
So, lots to take away here from the show. But that's all great stuff. I'm really glad we were able to tackle the defense here and walk through some of that, as I know there's a lot to look forward to in the upcoming game. So the next thing that we want to jump into is kind of the buy or sell session for the season. So we're going to take a look at some scenarios and benchmarks and see if this is something that we think is a viable opportunity or possibility for these players throughout the season. And the first one we're going to obviously start off with is Jake Fromm. Do we think that he's going to have over 3,000 yards on the season?
Jimmy. Buying or selling or over and under?
Let's go buy sell.
Okay.
I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
I'm gonna.
This
I
is
guess
the
I'll
fun
start.
stuff.
We can bounce back and forth.
Yeah,
this is fun because this is all speculative.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna.
We're gonna see how bad we are at our jobs.
I listened back on our earlier podcast from last year. Go back, watch film of ourselves, try and get better. And I was pretty over the top optimistic. I noticed last offseason I was talking about, like, we had all these players, and I'm like, we're going to score 1,000 points a game, and we're going to have 5 million yards of offense. And so I'm trying to be a little more realistic. So most of my, if it seems pessimistic, is more of getting to know better and better who Kirby is. I don't think that Kirby's out to score 70 points a game. That's just not the kind of football he wants to play. So for that reason, I'm going to sell this over 3,000 on Jake Fromm. I think he'll get close to there, and that being said, I don't think Tua or Trevor Lawrence would have 3,000 yards in this offense. I just don't think he's going to have enough attempts. I think he's going to be top 5 in QBR and probably yards per attempt, probably completion percentage in the country. But I think he'll fall somewhere in that 2,500 to 2,700 range unless Kirby just really cuts it loose this year, which would be awesome.
Do you want to go on this wheel, or
I'm gonna buy it.
All right,
good.
He has shown positive development over the past couple of years. He's increased both his yards, his touchdowns, receptions, all of that. I'm definitely buying this with a more senior team. I think in the work that they've put in over the spring, I think it's a good possibility.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I struggle with this too because I wanted to be some foil, and I think Jimmy and I were going to go the same way on most of these. Unfortunately, I hope not, but we'll find out. We didn't discuss any of this. The more I thought about that, I think two things. I think similar to what Jimmy said, our style of play and just who Kirby is. He's not out there to score 70. Once we get up, we're up, and then that just kind of goes into my real quick or small or second point of that, or 1A, I guess 1B, if you will. He just once we're up, we're going to pound the ball. I just don't see us. I don't see him having the chance to throw it unless he just gets those yards early and often. And our first couple of early scores are big passes or a quick check down to a running back or someone in the slot. We that's not us. I'd like to be. I would love for Fromm to have those accolades and to really have 3,000 yards. I think that looks good for his pro career. I think that looks good for us in recruiting wide receivers, and it's an exciting offense. Stick the long ball. That stuff's fun to watch. It's exciting plays. But I just, with who we are, with how deep our running back situation is, and also just at least early on with the unproven wide receivers. Practice reports say that they've really turned a corner, and each day there's a lot of consistency there and kind of stepping up and some confidence and comfortability, I guess. Some comfort there, growing comfort between Fromm and the wide receivers. But he's gotten closer. I think last year he was like, 240 yards. So
like
he's a game
28
away,
something.
essentially.
Yeah.
And, let's say that. Let's call that LSU, because LSU was a horrible game for him,
Yeah.
right? So he's going to flirt with it, and I expect us to be similar. I expect us to honestly pass more this year. I think I'll have more pass attempts.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm selling this just because, again, the running back rotation. I'll be more brief.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's like a culture thing in the school.
Yeah,
I think.
and then I just think the running back rotation, that's who we are, just with our depth there. And then the amount of time it'll take for us to ramp up to get fully comfortable on Saturdays with our new wide receivers is kind of why I'm selling on Jake Fromm on the 3,000-yard mark.
But Jake, we still love you. We still believe in you.
Yes.
Oh, you're my boy, Jake.
We know you could do it if called upon. We just think the run game and the defense can be good enough that you just
Yeah.
You don't need to throw.
enjoy yourself back there. Yeah, have a good time.
Yeah.
You don't need to.
You're the quarterback at University of Georgia.
Yeah, I think you could do it. I mean, that's where my heart is, Jake. So just so you know.
Jake's a listener.
Yeah. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks for listening, Fromm
Jake's
family.
mom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
Mama Fromm.
So the next one we're gonna talk about is receivers, and if we think that any receivers can go for over 1,000 yards, if so, who?
You want
good.
to kick this one off?
I'll start with this. This was tough. I'm gonna go backwards into this, I guess, and I would say who of our receivers would get them. Not are we going to? Who?
Yeah.
If I had to pick one person, say I wanted to sell on this, but I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna go ahead and buy. Who would win? I'm gonna say Demetrius Robertson out of at the Cal transfer, number 16. Didn't record a reception last year. I think he would be the only chance because the underneath stuff. I think he just has the skill set and the body type to, if he's going to catch something underneath, he can get that yak. He can burn a defense. It doesn't have to be ball in the air or ball through air catch all the time. He can make someone miss and earn those yards himself, not be so reliant on getting separation, catching a tough ball. Granted, balls over the middle are tough as well. I understand that. He still needs separation. But he just has that make you miss ability that will allow him to rack up those yards without needing, a long developing play, being super disciplined on a long route or having blown coverage. There's just I think he's a little more in control of what he does once he catches the ball, just because of the position he'll play in that slot position. So I'll go in on this one because I was low on Fromm, because it's weird to think that one guy's going to have 1,000 yards receiving and Fromm won't have 3,000 yards.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of shooting myself there in the foot. But that's a heavy load for one guy. But if one guy was going to do it, I would pick Demetrius Robertson, and I'll buy just to have fun with this segment.
Jim?
Yeah, so I'm going to sell on this one for kind of the reason Tyler touched on at the end, is that if I'm predicting Fromm to have somewhere between, what I said, 2,500 and 2,800 yards, something like that, for me to expect one player to have a full 40% of the yards is asking a lot. I will say that, and I don't know the best way to phrase this because you might say, like, well, duh, two players are going to combine for 1,000. I think that we're going to end up having two receivers where if you take one's first half of the season and the other's second half of the season and made that one receiver, they could end up having 1,000 yards. And the reason for that is George Pickens. I think he's going to come along as the year goes on, and I think that come like the second bye week in Florida and on, he may be kind of the go-to guy, and he may end up having like 650 yards in the last 6 or 7 games, but he only had like 125 the first 6 because it just takes a while to get on the field. So I think you could see a veteran type guy really be the go-to at the beginning, whether it's Robertson, whether it's Tyler Simmons, whether it's Cager from Miami. But I think Pickens is the guy that they eventually want to be the guy.
Yeah.
I just don't know that he'll be able to fit it all into one season. And I think he's a definite threat for it next year, assuming Fromm comes back.
That's where I was going to go with that as well.
Yeah.
I guess I thought Pickens. I think everybody wants Pickens. He's a flashy toy. He's an exciting piece coming out of camp with the great one-handed catches and all that. And he's kind of wowing everybody. But to Jimmy's point, being a freshman, Kirby's shown not just a freshman wide receiver. You got to block first, so you got to prove to block, which is going to cut into your time and chances of catching that ball and getting that PT to gain 1,000 yards. I agree. I think he's going to come on later, and I just didn't fall in love with the idea of like Tyler Simmons or Cager or any of them guys really going for 1,000. It's weird.
I don't think they have 1,000 in them at all. But I could see them getting like 450 and then Pickens bursting on the scene in the second half and getting like 790, 820, something like that. To where if you could have had that early, but so I'm going to sell, but for good reason. That I think we've got a freshman coming on really strong, just too little, too late to break 1,000.
Sure. Yeah, let me just go ahead and say I'll be shocked if we have a 1,000-yard receiver. I'm buying for the fun of this, but if one player has 1,000 yards and Jake Fromm doesn't even throw for 3,000,
we might have some other receivers transfer.
It's going to be weird.
We got to pass the ball around.
So I do understand how obnoxious that is, but that's my take.
It's preseason.
And then we're looking at the running backs. So are there going to be 2 running backs over 1,000 yards? If so, which one besides Swift?
Okay, so I came up with this question just based on the fact the last 2 years we've had 2 running backs go over 1,000 yards, which I think is some sort of NCAA record. I have back-to-back years with 2 running backs over 1,000 yards. I'm going to sell this one too, which sounds like I'm down on the offense, but what it is there's just so much talent. So I think that Swift is definitely going to get over 1,000 if he's healthy the whole year. I mean, if you look at the production he had after, again, I'm always referencing this bye week before Florida, because we always have a bye before Florida, and historically that just seems when all of a sudden a light comes on and we seem to get kind of healthy and just make a run. So if he gets that production for the whole year, I think he's pushing 15, 16, 1,700 yards, maybe 2,000 from scrimmage, and making a trip to New York. I mean, he's that good when he's healthy, in my opinion. It'll be how much Kirby decides to limit him. The reason it won't be a second one is similar to the Pickens deal. I think that if you take Harion's first half and ideally Zeus's second half, which I know I have a habit of, like, we're so high on Zeus, and he's literally hasn't had a live carry since October of 2017. But he's the shiny new toy that we want to bust out there and, like, let him do his thing. But I think that they want Zeus to come along and be the true number 2 guy by the end of the season. So, again, I don't know that he'll quite get 1,000 yards because it may be the Florida game. I'm just using as an arbitrary second half of the season that he becomes the true number 2, 10 to 12 to 13 carries a game, and not – I think you'll only see him get like 4 to 6 against, Vanderbilt, especially those early home games against nothing teams. I think we'll kind of bring him along slowly. So,
yeah. I was going to sell this one as well. I went back and looked, actually, did some research on this one. We actually only had 2,000-yard rushers last year. I thought we did it back-to-back years.
Sony went over in the national championship, but I guess some people might not count that.
Because I was looking at it, and it only said that Chubb and Sony did it together once in 2017. It was the only time they did it because...
but 17 and 18. They did, and Holyfield went over in the Sugar Bowl last year.
Okay, that's what it been.
So it wasn't that Chubb and Sony did it twice. It was that we've had a tandem 2 years
ago.
Okay,
I knew that. I guess I missed that. Elijah Holyfield just eclipsed that. Was that 1,018? So they clipped it. Okay, so
1,000 yards, 1,000 yards.
It is. So what I read was, I guess, not quite updated. So I was shocked by that too, because I know all we do was quote the back-to-back years with 2 1,000-yard rushers. So I was gonna go with Sale. I guess I'll still stick with Sale. Even though that has been a trend the past 2 years. My reason, similar to Jimmy, I think Swift has a big year. I'm not going to sit there and say 16 or 17. I don't think our offense is ever going to be quite friendly enough to send someone to New York. I think Swift certainly could win the Heisman, not that it's all about that. I think he has a talent. I just think, again, we shorten the bench. We go to our go-to guys and reliable guys. At the same time, we don't. We'll spread it around when we need to. We give guys breaks when we need to, when we have to. So I think Swift will be number 1. I can see a similar 12, 13, 1,400-yard season. And then I could see us having 2 guys, Harrion being that number 2 early on, carry on. Let's say till Florida, until Zeus really starts to come on and pick up after that bye week when it kind of clicks. He's kind of had enough. He'll have 2 bye weeks at that point, right before Tennessee and right before Florida, to kind of go over more film after having some game time to kind of, learn and adjust and slow down before those next couple of games. So, I agree with Jimmy. I think we need Zeus to come on, overtake Harry and overtake James Cook, not to forget him. But I can just see, let's call it Harry and Zeus having like a 750-yard apiece season, like a high, but both of them very close. Maybe a game or 2 of being the number 2 guy for sure, or for either one of them being 1,000-yard rusher. But I agree. I'm selling on that just because Sony and Chubb did it, but that was because it was both their senior years, and kind of a senior-laden offensive line yet again.
With a freshman quarterback, too.
Quarterback kind of
ran
handicap.
the crap out of the ball that year.
It took both of those great, damn good dog running backs a while to do that. And then you can also say the same about, it feels funny, but I guess Elijah Holyfield and Swift as well. Swift is what he is. That's why he's able to insert himself so early into that conversation, having a 1,000-yard rusher along with Elijah Holyfield. But again, Elijah Holyfield was there for 3 years, 4 years. Was he redshirt? Did he redshirt?
He's there 3 years.
For 3 years. which is this is Swift's third year as well, but everyone else behind him is just, so much younger. I guess that's wrong. Harrigan's been there for a while, but he hasn't been the guy like the rest have. So that might be a little convoluted response, I guess. But I do agree. I'm selling on that just because we've done it twice, and I think it's been they both instances we've done that have benefited from having seasoned guys that have been here long enough to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah.
What about you, Will? You didn't respond to the wide receiver one, but what do you think about the running backs?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no, that there's not gonna be another duo.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I mean, based on the talent that we've had in the past, and we're talking about two great Georgia running backs that were, that were there, but even last year we saw them like barely squeak by with 10-18. I don't think that we're going to have two again this year.
And I think we'll be more pass happy too. And I think Fromm will have more attempts. James Coley will pass it a little more than Chaney did. So I think that lends itself to shortening that bench as far as who's getting the touches.
Yeah, I think well into the 2000s of team rush yards. But I don't know
definitely.
if two guys will have 1,000 each.
Would you say 3,000 team rushing yards?
Oh, give me 1,400 for I'll do that. I'd say like 1,400 for Swift, like 750 each for Harrigan and Zeus, and then you got Cook and McIntosh.
Yeah,
it's getting 400 or 500 between them.
Because I will say I don't think Rogue used Zeus much. My guess versus Murray State and Arkansas State.
Yeah.
Let's say we get up big, he'll get let's say 5 carries and then take him out because again Kirby. We've seen it very early on. He'll throw in the guys. I don't know who the hell they are. They'll be in the field, and it's third quarter, and he's not going to risk some of that depth that we're going to need down the road for those games when it's already locked up. Experience is nice, but he knows that's not going to be it helps. Yes, he would tear me alive for saying it doesn't count, but that's just not the experience he's looking for to risk. The risk isn't worth that experience.
Yeah, and I think Kirby just has a really good feel for bringing guys along at a certain. He'll be like, oh man, this guy is supposed to be so good, and he's not playing, and then all of a sudden a game comes and he just like blows up out of nowhere. And so I think that as long as Kirby's not worried about the moment being too big for a kid, which everything you read about Zeus says, he's ready and he's in a very good mental place. He's going up against a better defense in practice every day than Murray State's going to put on the field. So it's not like he needs those live reps against, just a lamb for the slaughter basically. When he's going up against the kind of defense we just reviewed in practice every day.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. I don't think he'll play a ton, and then I don't think Kirby's like a superstitious guy, but like Knoxville, that's where knees go to die. So like I would give Zeus as few carries as we need to get out of there with a win. Wrap him in bubble wrap when he's not on the field because Knoxville's
maybe just don't
scares
take him.
Me.
Just don't travel with him that week.
Yeah. So, but I think Zeus will. I don't even remember where we started that tangent on, but.
Just because how early do we think he'll kind of be brought on to even?
Yeah. Actually, that's a question later on. So we can talk about
sorry.
Well, the next thing we were going to touch on was the sack total, and if we think that it's going to be over 35 sacks for the year. Now, according to the notes, last year it was 24.
I confirm that.
That was correct.
You did? Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So do we think that they're going to go 35 or above?
You want to start this one out?
Oh, God. I'll start off. 35 was a lot. That's 11 more. We were of 120 defenses, 130 defenses last year. We ranked 100.
Yeah.
100th, and we were dead last in the SEC in sacks. So we have not necessarily had the production we've needed for sacks. Now, I know Kirby and Mel Tucker last year harped on sacks aren't the whole story. It's havoc plays, which they've kind of ingrained in our brains this offseason as far as havoc, great havoc plays, which is simply just disrupting the ball. It's not necessarily a sack. It can be a QB hurry, I guess a throwaway, I'm not even sure. But anything that disrupts the ball, an interception, a pass breakup, I'm going to sell this. I think we'll see an increase. I could see us having 30. I'm going to go under 35, though, just because our secondary is so much more talented this year. I can see them having a lot more pass breakup opportunity to combine with our offensive production. If I predict us to be as up or have comfortable margins of victory as I predict we will in this coming season, teams will be throwing against us more to try to play catch up, which will just it'll lend itself to having more sack opportunities also by just seeing our secondary with who we have returning, with the amount of football they've seen and the senior leadership we have back there and just how athletic we are now and how big we are in that secondary. Mm-hmm. I can see that creating the havoc that he's looking for, not necessarily in a sack number. So I'm going to sell the 35 sacks for 2019.
Jim.
All right, I'm gonna buy the.
Here we go.
35 sacks.
Jimmy wants
Yeah,
in.
here's some argument. Here's some Disney dog for you. I just think that the group of pass rushers we have this year is so strong compared to anything that Kirby's ever put on the field. We've got some guys, especially in Adam Anderson and Nolan Smith, who I think, they're younger guys who don't have a lot of experience. So Adam Anderson is a sophomore, Nolan Smith is a freshman. But just like Tyler said, sometimes when you've got a guy that's like uber talented but is newer to the program, you give him, you have one job. Your job, like we saw it with Swift a lot his freshman year, that there were some runs where he was very disciplined to a fault, to where like he could have broken outside. I remember, I think it was Gary Patterson, the coach of TCU, talking about this in the Rose Bowl when they had the coach's corner. There were some plays that you could tell Swift, they had been like, you're running off tackle and you run straight till someone tackles you. Like, do not try to be a hero. This is your job. Get a first down and don't fumble. And there were big plays that were open, and he pointed to it and was like, as he gets older, he would have cut back outside there and that would have been a touchdown. But he's doing what he's coached to do right now because they don't want to put too much on a freshman. So all that to say, I think we've got some pass rushers that'll be the same way. That they're going to be in there just playing wide open, going for sacks. And I think that, to your point of the secondary being so good, the opposite of that is sometimes that causes quarterback to hold the ball too long. When you got like Miami's quarterback, he held the ball forever, and they got all the sacks. So I'm going to buy it. I'm going to say 35 sacks. I think Kirby is realizing how important havoc plays are, and sacks especially affecting the quarterback are. When you look at the ways that we've lost to Alabama, it's been not being able to affect the quarterback, letting Tua and Hurts kind of dance around back there, break containment. So I think that's something we're going to focus on. I think the talent's there, and I think we've got some almost borderline specialist guys that have that skill set and aren't going to be asked to do that much more. So I think they're going to be ready to hit it when they hit the field. So I'm going to buy it.
Do you have a sack leader?
I've got, which is funny that I say that with Adam Anderson and Nolan Smith, I've got Azeez Ojulari. I just think everything you read about him, the players are real high on him. And I trust what the players say more than, I heard from my buddy whose dad is a booster who got to attend a practice or something.
Yeah.
And when Andrew Thomas specifically called him out by name, he's probably the best player on the team.
Yeah.
Probably going to be a top 10 draft pick at left tackle, saying, man, it's a hassle to go up against him in practice every day.
Well, I think
that gets me pretty excited.
That is exciting for our number one guy is going to be a top 10 draft pick to say a sophomore is playing that well. Wasn't it Azeez Ojulari that was compared to everyone compares someone to the most recent team and the most recent superstar, but wasn't he compared to Roquan just because of his speed? Was it Azeez? I can't recall.
Well, he's an edge rusher, so I don't know that that's
I guess that's right. He's an outside linebacker.
Nakobe would be the one that...
I thought it was someone in the last class. They were like, he's the next guy to step into Roquan's shoes. And I want to say it was Azeez, but again, they're not the same position. So
he might be such an athlete that maybe he was running it inside linebacker for a while. But yeah, it is always
maybe
fun
it was
to
Channing
compare
Tindall or
somebody.
But that's exciting.
I think Azeez would be my sack leader.
Yeah.
So what about you? Do you have...
If I had to pick a sack, that's a tough one to pass up. Because he's going to be the starter, and like you said, he's kind of. I don't see it being Walter Grant. Nolan Smith is too much of a pipe, not a pipe dream. It's just too much of a Disney dog to me.
Yeah, it's hard to see
it's
on
hard
a defense
to
this good. A true freshman leading the team in sacks.
Yeah, I almost want to say it could be someone like Mark Webb or Tavon Wilson. Send someone, just be aggressive in that blitz. Kind of just and not in the sense that it's a high sack number. Maybe it's 5 or 6. And it's just so spread out amongst the rest of the team that the sack total gets to that number, and that the leading person has 6, and it comes from all over, and it's kind of a contributing factor. I know I told some friends, they were shocked to hear this. I said, I think this is going to be the best defense that we've had under Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
They thought that was kind of surprising, and I think it's because we do, is around the point I'm making, is we lack that star power. We don't have that Roquan Smith, that DeAndre Baker. There's kind of that who is it going to be next, and I think it'll reveal itself. Someone will be that guy.
Yeah.
I just don't think we have that coming into this year. So I think that's where it kind of feels like it might be able to accumulate from a whole, from the squad itself, not just necessarily one guy that got to kind of key in, which I think would be as a player, you want to have the stats, you want to get to the pros, you want to have a good film. But Bama seems to do it every year, where it's just they have a ton of guys that do it. They kind of have all similar stats, and they just all go to the NFL. So I'm okay with passing on the superstar guy on defense to have just pick your poison. When it comes to the guys that are beginning after the quarterback. So Will, what about you? Buy or sell 35 sacks in a season this year?
I'm going to sell that. I think that's too dramatic of an increase. I'm with Tyler. I think that they'll get to maybe 30, 32, but I don't think 35. I think that's out of reach.
It's 3 sacks a game for the regular season, right? You get 12. We're guaranteed 12 games. We're going to have at least 14.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think you're going to see a couple 5-6 sack games, whether it's like those cupcakes with Murray State or whatever, whether we just go off on, whether it's Florida's offensive line is not. I mean, Tennessee's probably going to start 2 freshmen.
Sure.
At the tackles. I don't know.
That's
South
nice.
Carolina, I don't know that much about, but it's not like they're an offensive line powerhouse or anything like that.
My worry is those guys that can run. Auburn's got Bo Nix, a true freshman, but he's a dual threat guy. Kelly Bryant's a dual threat guy. I don't know what Felipe Franks is.
No, he has no threat.
Nobody does.
He has none threats.
So, I mean, that's not that many, but we'll definitely put Kellen Mond at A&M. There's some guys that can definitely
play a lot of
room
dual
and
threat
it can
guys.
extend.
Yeah.
Tua extends it. I imagine whoever we see, if we make it to the college football playoff, would be this kind of similar. If it's, God forbid, Jalen Hurts again at Oklahoma, I know.
Nightmares.
But we're just those teams seem to have that kind of Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, those kind of guys that are squeaky that we quite haven't shut down. So
That's fair.
the football landscape is littered with those guys, and that's why they're in the conversation every year.
That'll be fun to watch, though.
Yeah, it will.
Awesome. So the last thing we're going to touch on with the defense, talking about the havoc plays that Tyler alluded to a little bit ago, the top 5 in havoc plays. Jimmy, I guess you're alluding to the players that are going to be involved in this?
No, I meant like in the country. Like, are we going to be a top 5 total
Gotcha.
defense in terms of havoc plays?
Gotcha. Tyler, what do you think about that?
I think yes, for sure. I wanted to say even we were. I'm going to misquote this stat badly. We were top 10 defense in something last year, and I can't recall. But it has to do maybe it was explosive plays in limiting.
I think limiting
can't remember.
explosive plays, that's like Kirby's bread and butter.
Yeah, so with Jimmy's point of us being more explosive in the pass rush and our bigger, lengthier, stronger, faster secondary. I mean, I know we're not a super team. We definitely have weaknesses. I'm not saying we're all world beaters. Everyone is at this point in the season or thinks they are. But definitely, I mean, I think our schedule lends itself to that with who we play. Thankfully, so I think that helps. But I guess it's been so harped on, and I think going back, I think this is the most talented defense. The only thing I can see it tripping us up is off the field, honestly, in Glenn Schumann's first year as defensive coordinator. Mel Tucker kind of had it dialed up and dialed in. I think it could take Glenn a little bit longer because you could see versus Texas, we had a hard time adjusting to Sam Ellinger, whatever. We just couldn't quite have an answer for him. I don't know if that was just him being his first game, having a few guys sitting out for that game and injured, having some of these younger guys like Azeez Ojulari. So I can see us being that. I guess the only hindrance could be possibly the comfortability in play calling or being too aggressive, as a young defensive coordinator in that. But I don't know. I guess the Joes in the field can make up for that. They can. Yeah. It's a lot easier to coach some guys when you have some littered with 5 stars out there. So I definitely see us top 5's tough. But I guess in the league we play in, I mean, I don't see anyone in the Big 12 performing something like that. They're notorious for crappy defenses. So I just
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm buying top 5.
Well, I sold it because I said
it's different.
Looking at it now, it's like I'm predicting a zillion sacks, but not top 5 in havoc, which is kind of goofy. But
it's like me and you.
It's my podcast, so I can make these picks if I want to. I just said it's too much change in 1 year because we were pretty far down in havoc plays last year. We were super limiting explosive plays, super far bend but don't break. Mm-hmm. I think the reason I think we're going to put a lot more emphasis on rushing the passer when you just look at the roster that we've built. We do have a very, very deep secondary too, which lends itself to the havoc plays because a pass broken up or intercepted counts as a havoc play.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think the thing that could hurt us is I don't know how many tackle for losses that we'll have because that's just not really the way our defense is built. Like when they're passing and we want to pin our ears back, I think we got the talent to get there. When it's a rush play, our defensive line more holds the block, and ideally you've got your Roquan Smith type characters that are wrapping people up for like a 1 yard gain. Mm-hmm. So that would be the thing that I think could hurt us a little in terms of total havoc plays is I don't know how many tackle for losses I think you'll see a lot of plays that have the same effect, ideally, that are a 1 or 2 yard gain, and now at the end, they're punting on 4th and 6 instead of 4th and 8.
Yeah.
So it's the same effect, but I don't know how many truly behind the line of scrimmage tackles you'll see coming out of the run game.
I guess I see it more spread out. I guess again, going back to like no one superstar, at least right now.
Yeah.
Right now, it truly feels like pick your poison. Coaches we're going to play against are going to pick us apart and find out who to throw against, who to run at.
Yeah.
But I just think it's definitely more spread out than just one pass rusher or one guy in the secondary that's going to help us get there.
Yeah.
In the top 5. What about you, Will? Do you fear the Dogs' defense this year?
Yes, but I don't know that it's going to be top 5. I think Tyler, you mentioned it, that it's been harped on and everyone's talking about it. Kirby was interviewed and asked about it, and there was an interesting quote when they were asking about the Havoc plays. He said that, quote, that comes in a lot of forms. I think a lot of people expect to see more people coming, but that's just not necessarily the case. Havoc doesn't equal pressure. It's a bit, about the ability to get a hand on the ball, to bat a ball down, to cause a turnover, do those things. So I think that's like a really interesting insight. It doesn't mean we're just sending more guys. Mm-hmm. It means that we're playing smart and that these guys are going to be in position where they need to be to make the plays. So to Jimmy's point, I'm more on board with that, where I don't know that we're necessarily going to see like big plays for losses or a ton of sack numbers. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to translate into a top 5 performance, but I definitely think that the defensive side is on the up and up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like after all this conversation, that's good, Will. I think I'm more like realistic on not realistic. I just feel like I feel like I have the defense. I'm more realistic on the defense, and you're more realistic on the offense. Because here I am saying, oh, yeah, we'll have a 1,000-yard receiver, but we won't have a 3,000-yard passer.
Yeah.
But we will be a top 5 defense, but we won't have 35 sacks.
Yeah.
We'll have 35 sacks. Won't be a top 5.
That's the fun of the preseason.
Yep, I know. So we'll definitely go back and listen to this to hear how
we'll open
absolutely wrong we were.
Yeah. No, but it's fun having
when Jake Fromm has like 5,400 passing yards.
My God. Oh. If he has that, we're taking that ring home, baby.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But it's fun to have these kinds of discussions, and obviously any number of things can happen between now and the end of the season, let alone now and Saturday. So
no rest.
Yeah, hopefully all of these guys can stay smart, get to the games, not run into any issues, either on the field or off of it. But I kind of want to round things out about this discussion and just go right into the predictions for the outcome of the game on Saturday against Vanderbilt. Which, by the way, are either of you guys going?
I'm not going to be up there. We looked at going. I've been to so many games at Vanderbilt in Nashville, and it's usually like a fun, cheap Nashville weekend, and this one was really expensive.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's Labor Day weekend in Nashville, first game of the season for both teams, SEC opener, and we're the number 3 team in the country.
Yeah.
So say what you want about rankings and all that, and it being Vanderbilt, but I think the average ticket this week, they said it was $250.
Yeah, I think last time Tyler and I there, we bought a ticket 30 minutes before kickoff for like $30.
Yeah, I'm not looking to spend that much money to see Vanderbilt.
And I just feel like it's going to be a pretty long, pretty expensive season.
Yeah.
Tyler and I have our flights, tickets, and hotels squared away for the national championship.
Just jinxed ourselves right there. But now the world knows.
Yeah.
We are set for New Orleans 2020.
Yep.
But yeah, so no, not going to the game. The fiance and I are going to Boston. Never been to that city, but planning to watch the game up there at the UGA alumni bar.
Oh, that'd be neat.
Clary's.
That's awesome.
So
cool.
That'll be a good time.
We got a lot of Boston listeners, so
hopefully
everybody at Tyler on Twitter.
I'll be sure to share the news over the podcast.
You're gonna have to take some pictures and videos. I want to see what that bar looks like. With that, if it's an alumni bar in Boston, I want to see how.
Well, I looked it up online. It's red and black and balloons and some flags, but it wasn't too over the top. It wasn't too crazy. Yeah, I was a little like, that's okay. But Jimmy and I went and watched it at the UGA alumni bar. We went to watch the South Carolina game last year at the UGA alumni bar in Asheville, visiting Dr. Brent Johnson, and he was doing his residency there.
It was fun. There was probably like 40, 50 people there. It was definitely a hodgepodge.
Yeah,
really. Well, it's Asheville, I think.
Yeah, so they're all shapes and sizes and ages of Georgia, but all Georgia fans.
All Georgia fans.
All good people, salt of the earth.
I can't remember the name of the brewery. We can move right on. Doesn't matter. But it was Terrapin's sister bar. The people who opened Terrapin opened that same brewery up there. So
cool.
Anyway, just another chance to go check another city and watch a game there.
Yeah.
Well, scores. What do we got?
Yeah. On that note.
Tyler. I don't want to go first. This is tough. I feel like I'm horrible at these. So I know that the spread is 21.5, so just call it 22 on the road. I mean, I think we definitely win comfortably. I should be more. I think they lost their quarterback, so I think they're starting a new quarterback. Kyle Schirmer, was that?
Yeah, he graduated.
He's gone.
So they've got some pretty good skill players, but a very big question mark at quarterback.
And I know they have a good running back. Is it Keyshawn Vaughn? Is that him, or is that Missouri? I can't recall.
I believe it's Vanderbilt, and they've got a tight end named
good.
Pinkney.
Yeah, isn't Keyshawn? Is he the leading returning rusher in the SEC? If I'm not mistaken.
I would think
something crazy.
Swift is
I don't think Swift's the leading returning rusher just because of how much he shared the ball. Anyway, moving on. Just trying to think of what they have.
I should be a better SEC fan.
I should.
Focused
it's
on
tough.
Georgia.
I've said this year I want to be a lot better at watching the conference and just really focusing in on that and reading a lot more and not just getting so deep into our team because it is a little better than the landscape. I'll wrap all this long answer up. Let's call Georgia 38-14 Dogs.
I've got 41-17. So same margin of victory, just an extra field goal for each one.
Go ahead. I've got 45-14.
Okay, so all of us covering pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
But
42-13.
42-13.
Nice, David.
Thank you.
Didn't we have a guest last year where David went like 1 point over me and was actually right?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like that was in an early episode.
I think.
Wait, what would you say your score was, David?
42-13.
Okay.
Are you writing these down, Will? Someone should write these down.
I wanted to
We're recording.
We're going to have to go back and listen to this.
I mean, this past year was 41-13. So, sticking with the trends.
There you go.
There you go. We got 1 point better.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah, get better every day.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us again. It's great to be back on a consistent basis and having all of you tune in with us. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. You can find us Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Be on the lookout for this stuff to get posted. Once again, from all of us here to everybody out there, we want to say thanks and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.